Hey guys, tonight we slip into a world older than empires, where rivers don't just flow, they command, and fields don't just grow, they whisper. You stand barefoot on the warm earth of Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers. It's twilight now. The Euphrates murmurs beside you. In the distance, thick groves of date palms rustle like gossiping elders, and a pair of oxen splash through the shallows. You can almost smell the wet clay, the faint sweetness of fermenting figs, and, because this is ancient Mesopotamia, a lot of sweat. You're wearing a linen tunic that clings a bit too much in this humidity, and your sandals squelch with every step. There's a nearby farmer hacking away at some stubborn reeds with a bronze sickle. He doesn't say hi. He's been working since sunrise, and frankly, he thinks you look too soft to last till morning. He's probably right. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your city and local time in the comments. I want to know where and when you're dreaming from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge along the edge of the irrigation canal, where the mud squishes comfortingly between your toes and fireflies dot the air like errant embers. In the distance, a flock of geese honk at something invisible, maybe a passing spirit. Farmers around you pack up for the night, herding goats and muttering about another inspection from the temple tax scribes. You quickly learn that here, everything loops back to the temple. Even the fields aren't really yours. They belong to the gods, or technically, to the temple's granary, which rents them to families, along with oxen, seeds, and a charming little list of rituals that must be followed if you want your barley to survive. You pass a crumbling stele etched with curvy, wedge-shaped cuneiform symbols. It's an old farming edict, something about flood season and moon timing. Historians still argue whether such inscriptions were practical calendars or coded religious prescriptions. Either way, it's a reminder. Here, writing is power, and power flows from the temple like water from a cracked jug. A kid with a shaved head and one long lock of hair sprints by, yelling about a goat that gave birth to twins. Apparently a good omen, or a bad one. Depends who you ask. Superstition here is like date syrup. Everywhere, sticky, and in more things than you expect. You wander into a clearing where women pound grain with long-handled mortars. They're singing something rhythmic in a language your ears don't quite grasp. One woman pauses, eyes you, and then laughs. "You got the moon's feet," she says, pointing to the mud caking your legs, whatever that means. A low, distant hum begins to rise, almost too low to hear. It's not drums exactly, more like a vibration rolling through the ground. A deep, slow rhythm. You look around. No one else seems surprised. Soon, you realize it's coming from the direction of the ziggurat. You've heard stories. Of course you have. Everyone has. A stepped tower built to reach the gods. It's said to be the spinal cord of the world, connecting earth and sky. Priests say the gods descend its terraces at night. Cynics say it's just a glorified grain storage facility with delusions of grandeur. You squint at the horizon. There, barely visible, is its silhouette. Massive, angular, like someone stacked a mountain out of bricks and then flattened the top with a celestial spatula. You don't head there directly. Not yet. First, you drift. The Mesopotamian evening is patient, and you're in no rush to get divine attention. You detour past a makeshift shrine nestled between two palm trees. Someone's carved a fat little clay figure and left offerings: figs, feathers, and a tiny bronze spear. It smells strongly of myrrh and damp stone. A breeze rustles past, and you could swear the statue smiles. Just a trick of the firelight, right? A drunk shepherd stumbles out of a grove, dragging a harp. "The moon's eating the stars again," he slurs, then cackles. No one takes him seriously, but the mention sticks with you. Another historical nugget. Mesopotamians believed eclipses were bad news, especially for kings. A total lunar eclipse? Cue emergency rituals, clay effigies, and substitute royalty, who probably didn't last the week. Finally, you arrive at a little rise in the land where the reeds thin out. From here, you can see it clearly. The Ziggurat, rising like a stairway to myth. Its baked brick body glows faintly in the moonlight, catching hints of copper and shadow. No lights, no windows, just presence. You sit for a moment, letting the crickets hum their lullaby and the wind tickle your cheeks. It's quiet, almost too quiet, but not in a creepy way. More like the calm before some weirdly holy nonsense goes down. Behind you, frogs start chirping in tandem, as if on cue. You glance back at the water, and a pale silver fish breaks the surface, mouth open as if trying to speak. You blink. Gone. It's getting late, and the ziggurat isn't going to explore itself. You rise slowly, brushing off the dust. There's no official path, just faint trails worn by priests and pilgrims. The mud brick under your feet is warm, still releasing the heat of the day like a sun-baked oven tile. Your shadow stretches long behind you, reaching toward the dark canal, as if reluctant to leave the safety of the riverbanks. But you press forward, one cautious footstep at a time, because something waits at the base of that tower, and you, muddy, tired, and just a little cursed, are apparently expected. You're not sure when you first notice the boat. It's tied loosely to a driftwood post, bobbing in the current of the Euphrates like it's been waiting for you since the last full moon. Made of bundled reeds and sealed with tar, it looks like something a clever child might build. Except this one could carry a dozen amphorae of barley and still have room for your growing sense of unease. The man beside it doesn't speak. He gestures with his chin and thumps the side of the boat twice. You step in. The boat rocks once, then settles. You sit cross-legged on the woven floor, your fingers brushing sticky resin and scattered date pits. The ferryman, he never gave a name, grabs a long pole and pushes off from shore. The ziggurat fades behind you, replaced by thick reed banks that hiss in the wind. Frogs croak in lazy rhythm. Crickets chirp like tiny hand drums. Fireflies dance in tight spirals. The boat glides. You inhale deeply. Water, fish, and mud. The holy cocktail of Mesopotamian life. And death, too, when the rivers flood wrong. You lean over the edge and catch your reflection, smeared with dirt, wide-eyed, a bit too awake for this time of night. "Careful," the ferryman mutters, his first words. "River gods don't like to be stared at." Right. That's a thing. You pull back. Mainstream Mesopotamian belief says the rivers were literal deities, powerful, temperamental, and not above drowning a few arrogant villagers to make a point. Rituals involving reeds, salt, and sheep's blood were often held at the riverbanks to appease them. And yes, that includes whispering apologies into the current. Up ahead, torchlight glints off the water, a checkpoint. Two guards with lazy eyes and pointy beards hail the boat. They're chewing something sticky, probably fermented fig paste, and one of them keeps swatting his forehead like he's offended by sweat. Inspection, one says, with the tone of someone who'd rather be napping. The ferryman grunts and gestures to you. The guards eye you up and down, then ask for your temple pass. You don't have one. You try smiling. That doesn't work. One guard sighs dramatically, then rummages in a basket and hands you a tiny clay seal. You're lucky, he mutters. Last guy got cursed for lying. Frogs lived in his ears for weeks. You mutter a thanks and clutch the seal like it might hatch. The boat drifts on. As you settle back, something dark slides beneath the surface, long and sinuous. You decide not to look again. The ferryman hums under his breath, a low, tuneless murmur. You recognize it from earlier, the same vibration you felt in the soil. A temple rhythm. The priests believe sound helps guide the boat through spiritual currents, not just water. That's why they chant. That's why they sing. That's why every ritual has a beat. A cluster of huts emerges on the shoreline, their windows glowing faintly. You pass a little girl with a fish basket and a goat on a leash. She waves. The goat sneezes. River folk, says the ferryman. Don't talk much. Listen too well. It's around this time that you notice your toes are wet. Not from the river. No, the boat is fine. It's from the clay jar that has somehow appeared beside you. It's leaking something thick and red onto your sandals. You poke it. It pokes back. You don't ask questions. Instead, you reach for one of the date cakes wrapped in palm leaves that someone, somehow, placed beside you during the checkpoint. You chew slowly. It tastes like honey, old air, and bad decisions. The ferryman coughs. Temple soon. Sure enough, the land opens into a wide bend. There, framed by pale moonlight, rises another view of the ziggurat. But this one is somehow even more dramatic. It looms over the water, its layered terraces sharp against the sky, each one edged with torches that burn smokeless and steady. You can hear a low chanting carried on the breeze. Goosebumps rise on your arms. Here's a quirky bit of history. Some scholars believe the ziggurats were painted in bands of color, blue at the top for the heavens, red in the middle for blood and life, and black at the base for the underworld. No one's entirely sure. Traces of pigment have been found, but whether they were symbolic or just decorative is still hotly debated. Your boat docks at a hidden pier made of black basalt stones. A robed figure greets you. Not a guard this time, but a priest. His hair is coiled like an ox's horn, and his eyes have the glazed look of someone who's been fasting and talking to stars all day. He doesn't greet you by name. He simply says, "The river delivered you." Walk carefully. Some doors close after midnight. You thank the ferryman. He's already untying the boat, and step onto solid ground. The path from the water to the temple's rear entrance is narrow and lined with clay figurines. Each one bears a different expression: surprise, terror, laughter, grief. Some have inscriptions on their bellies. You don't look too closely. One has your nose. You climb a short set of stairs and find yourself inside a tunnel. The walls are painted with swirling shapes and half-faded gods. It smells like old smoke and something else, like dried blood and lemons. A charming mix. You feel the air shift. The temperature drops. You've officially entered the ziggurat's shadow, not just physically, but ritually, spiritually. Whatever this place is, it's watching you now. A whisper at your shoulder. Did you bring the offering? You turn. No one's there. Another voice, from behind a tapestry. Step lightly. The floor remembers. You're not even trying to sneak anymore. just walking very, very politely. At last, you reach a threshold. A final wooden door, half rotted, carved with spiral patterns and crescent moons. Above it, a clay plaque of a lion swallowing the sun. You touch the door. It swings open, and you step into the base of the ziggurat, where nothing is what it seems, and everything is older than memory. The first thing that hits you is the smell. Not dust, not smoke, though both are certainly present, but something older, like ancient honey soaked into limestone, like time, if time had a scent. You take a cautious step forward, and the door swings shut behind you with a low thunk, sealing out the river's cool breeze. The chamber is dim, lit by flickering oil lamps set in niches, carved right into the thick mud brick walls. The light dances across faded murals. Beasts with wings, gods with horned helmets, and what might be a man holding a fish over his head like a trophy, or a very confused offering. You can't tell. The floor is packed clay, smooth from centuries of bare feet and ceremonial dragging. It's warm underfoot, and for a moment, you think you can feel it pulsing, like the temple is breathing. You're not alone. 4 figures stand silently at the far end of the room, wrapped head to toe in layered robes, faces hidden behind carved wooden masks. One wears a jackal, one a falcon. One, oddly, has the smooth, blank face of a baby. The last has no eyes at all, just swirls where the eye holes should be. They make no sound, but one of them gestures. Forward. Of course you go. You walk slowly, trying not to trip on the hem of your tunic or your rising panic. The closer you get, the more detailed the masks become. Not just painted, but inlaid with tiny shells, crushed lapis lazuli, and what you really hope isn't human tooth. They part, allowing you to pass through. Beyond them lies a stairwell, spiraling upward into the dark. You hesitate at the first step. A joke floats to the top of your brain. This better lead to a snack bar. You don't say it. This feels like a no-joke zone. As you climb, the air thickens. You pass alcoves filled with relics, a rusted sickle wrapped in dyed wool, a basket of pigeon skulls, a cracked pot with a blackened tongue inside. Some of it is probably symbolic. Some of it might still be twitching. Mainstream historians agree that the interiors of ziggurats likely house storerooms, archives, and small chapels. But fringe scholars whisper about secret rituals, dream incubation chambers, initiation labyrinths, and rooms where the gods were said to appear in fire and shadow. No proof, of course, just scorch marks and unexplainable symbols etched on ceilings that no ladder could reach. You reach a landing. Here, the floor is covered in thin reed mats, and a single low table holds 7 bowls arranged in a crescent. Each contains something different. Water, oil, blood, probably goat, crushed barley, black sand, a gleaming red stone, and what looks like ash mixed with gold flakes. You don't touch them. Yet. A voice from the dark. Choose one. You freeze. One what? No answer. Of course. This is the kind of riddle the temple priests love. Everything's symbolic, everything's layered, and if you guess wrong, you might end up wearing a donkey tail until the next solstice, if you're lucky. You pick up the bowl of crushed barley. It smells earthy, clean, familiar, not a trap. The walls vibrate softly, like they approve. A hidden door slides open. You step through into a chamber, unlike anything you've seen so far. It's circular, with a domed ceiling that reflects moonlight through an opening at the top. The walls shimmer slightly, mica dust, you think, and are painted with stars, not random ones, constellations. You spot the bull of heaven, the scorpion, and a strange angular one that resembles a ziggurat itself. A priest is waiting. He's not masked. He's old, beardless, his skin the color of river silt, his hands knotted like driftwood. He wears a necklace of tiny sun disks and a sash dyed indigo. "You've brought barley," he says, his voice echoing weirdly in the chamber. "You come seeking passage." You don't remember agreeing to that, but sure. He smiles. "You walk the moon spiral now." "Okay, well, that sounds fancy and ominous. You'll see visions, dreams, lies, truth. Your job is not to decide which is which, just survive them." A joke, again, slips out. "That's comforting." The priest doesn't laugh. "Few things in the temple are." He gestures to the far side of the chamber, where the wall seems to ripple. Then with a flat clap, everything goes dark. You're falling. Not down. Not really. More like sideways. The temple vanishes. The air smells like myrrh and thunder. You see flashes. A man with a bird's head writing on a tablet made of fire. A child pouring oil into a screaming pit. A ziggurat floating in the sky like a god's chess piece. You blink, and you're somewhere else. A courtyard. Daylight. People are bustling around you, dressed in finer linen than you've ever seen. A procession passes. Musicians, dancers, men wearing lion skins. Everyone's headed toward the central staircase of a new ziggurat. Whitewashed, gold-capped, glowing like a second sun. You realize this is the past, or a dream, or both. This is the dedication ceremony, the day the temple opened. You're watching it happen through borrowed eyes. The king is there, high beard, high crown, very self-satisfied. He holds a staff in one hand and a jar of oil in the other. He climbs the stairs slowly, pouring the oil in a line behind him as he goes. You hear a whisper in your left ear. "Oil to smooth the god's descent." Another voice, right side this time. "Or to trap him here, chained and sent." You can't tell which one is right. Scholars still argue whether ziggurats were meant to attract divine presence or to contain it. Architecture as invocation or as cage. The sky flashes white. You're back in the chamber. The priest is gone. But a tablet rests at your feet. Clay. Damp. Freshly inscribed with symbols that glow faintly in the dark. You bend to read it. One word stands out. Ascend. You pick it up. It hums in your palm. The next staircase looms, narrower than before. You start to climb again, barley still in hand, heart pounding softly in your throat. Whatever waits above, it's watching now. And it knows your name. The staircase winds tighter now, each step more uneven than the last. Your sandals slip once, twice, on the smooth clay edges, but you catch yourself before falling into what you're fairly certain is a symbolic and literal pit of regret. The barley bowl hums with each footfall, its contents vibrating faintly, like the grains no more than you do. Probably do. Your fingers trail along the curved wall, tracing etched spirals and crescent marks that grow more elaborate the higher you climb. Some symbols you recognize: sun, river, lion. Others look more like instructions or warnings or invitations. One resembles a pair of open eyes, another a door with no handle. You stop at one shaped like a cracked pot, thumb its outline, and feel warmth pulse from the stone like it remembers being touched before, not by you, by someone very, very lost. You emerge into the next level without fanfare. No priest this time, no masks, just a chamber lined with niches, each one holding a statue no taller than your forearm. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all different. The room hums with silence, old silence, the kind that stacks itself like sediment over generations of prayers, sacrifices, and whispered regrets. You kneel instinctively, unsure why. Your bowl of barley rests in front of you. The statues stare back. Each one is unique. A woman with bird wings and jaguar feet, a man with 5 eyes, and a crown made of snakes, a child clutching a dead star. The details are maddeningly precise. The eyes seem to follow you, but not in a cartoonish way. More like they're tracking your guilt. Welcome to the Chamber of Guardians. Historians agree. This part of a ziggurat likely served ritual purposes. Some think it was used to house protective idols for each family, tribe, or city sector. Others argue these statues weren't symbols at all, but vessels. Bodies for wandering spirits, placeholders for things that should not walk the earth. Still, others claim the entire level acted like a spiritual waiting room, a limbo of sorts, where souls paused before being judged or assigned tasks by the temple priests. And guess what? You're standing right in the middle of it. A wind, there should be no wind, brushes your neck. One of the statues tilts its head, ever so slightly. You blink. It's upright again. Okay? No sudden movements? You rise slowly, carrying the barley like a peace offering, and begin to circle the room. Your steps fall silent on the reed mats, but your heartbeat is practically announcing your presence like a town crier. Each niche seems to radiate something unique: warmth, cold, pressure, melancholy. You pass one that smells like lavender and wet ash, another like dried blood and mint. One guardian near the back catches your attention. It's small, child-sized, but the eyes are shut. A serene face, lips parted as if whispering a dream. Carved from a dark green stone veined with gold, it gives off a heat like sun-warmed brick. And there, nestled in its lap, is another bowl. You bend closer. It contains barley, but not like yours. These grains shimmer faintly, as though dusted with moonlight. You glance at your own bowl, dull, humble. No one says anything. There's no voice, no command, but you feel it. The challenge. Barley for barley. Vision for vision. You switch the bowls. Immediately, the chamber shifts. Not physically, but your vision tunnels slightly. Sounds blur. The statue's blurrier still. It's like reality just stepped aside to let something else peek through. You're not alone in your head anymore. You see flashes, hands pounding clay, shaping the very statue you just borrowed from. A child watching from a doorway. Then that same child, years later, masked and robed, placing the barley in the statue's lap and whispering something that curls through your ears like steam. Guard the path. Eat their fears. Let none pass who carry the old names. You really hope your name is new enough. You back away slowly, but the vision follows. The air ripples. The statue opens its eyes. They glow faint blue. No one screams, least of all you, but it's close. The idol doesn't move, just watches, testing, a breath on your cheek. Offer accepted, it says, in your voice. Cool, totally normal, definitely not haunted. You stumble out of the room and into the next stairwell, barely noticing that your new barley bowl is lighter than before. You feel it in your gut. Some of those grains have been used. To fuel what? You can't say. Yet. The climb gets steeper. The air changes. There's no longer a sense of dust or history. It feels clean, somehow, sterile. Like this part of the ziggurat is not for people at all. You reach a chamber of pure geometry. Octagonal walls, a domed ceiling, a central pit ringed with copper symbols. At the far end, a single black door. Flat, seamless, floating above the pit, a tablet. It spins slowly, covered in unfamiliar writing that shifts every few seconds. You've reached the Hall of Questions. Mesopotamian temples were deeply invested in divination, omens, dreams, astrology, and sometimes what can only be called cosmic riddles. Clay tablets like this were often used to encode celestial events, rituals, and prophecies. Some scholars believe high-ranking priests trained for decades to interpret them. Others say they just made it up and blamed the stars when it went wrong. You approach the tablet. It speaks without speaking. What is the shape of silence? You blink. Excuse me? The tablet shifts again. What drinks the sky and spits the rain? This is definitely not multiple choice. Another line forms. Which came first, the temple or the dream? The barley hums louder in your arms, as if reacting to the riddle. You do what any rational person would do. You whisper, the dream. The copper sigils around the pit flare. The door clicks. You're either a genius or you've just accidentally committed to astral jury duty. The door opens. Slowly. Beyond it, darkness and stairs. Always more stairs. You take a breath. The barley whispers now, low and rhythmic, like a heartbeat or a countdown. One level closer to the top, one level deeper into whatever the ziggurat really is. The stairs narrow now, uncomfortably so. You have to turn your body sideways just to fit. The barley bowl presses awkwardly against your ribs, warm as ever, whispering its rhythm like a lullaby sung by something with far too many teeth. You're sweating, not from exertion, but from anticipation, and maybe the fact that the walls seem to be breathing. With every upward step, the architecture shifts. Gone are the clean clay lines and carefully tamped bricks of the lower levels. Now the walls glisten with salt deposits and streaks of ancient pigment, reds, blacks, and deep greens that may once have been symbolic, but now just look like the ziggurat bled a little, and no one bothered to clean it up. Eventually, the stairwell yawns into another chamber, this one open to the stars. You pause. The wind hits you like a blessing. Up here, high above the city, you can see the silver ribbon of the Euphrates snaking off into the desert, moonlight glittering across its surface. Palm groves sway gently below. There are flickering torches along the walls of the temple complex, tiny orange eyes peering upward as if they know someone is ascending, and they're not sure if that's good news. A platform stretches out before you, smooth stone underfoot, lined with carved benches and enormous ceramic jars sealed with wax and twine. You recognize a few of the markings: grain tallies, celestial symbols, the cuneiform for "do not open," or maybe snacks, depending on your translation skills. You're standing in the observatory garden. Mainstream archaeologists believe that the tops of ziggurats may have served as platforms for watching the skies. The ancients tracked the moon, the sun, Venus. One of the earliest astronomical records in the world came from Mesopotamia. But others argue these gardens weren't just for observation, they were for offering. As if you stared long enough into the heavens, someone would stare back. And if they liked what they saw, maybe they'd respond. You walk slowly across the platform. Plants grow in deep troughs, desert shrubs, fig trees, and something that looks suspiciously like dreamroot. You lean in to sniff a small flower and nearly fall backward as the petals shift and form the outline of an eye. Just for a moment. Definitely not your average herb garden. A low drone begins to build beneath your feet. Not mechanical. More like a chant with no mouths. A tone older than speech. The barley in your arms pulses in sync. And the tablet from earlier, yes, It's still tucked under your arm, buzzes like a wasp. Then you see it. A pool, dead center of the rooftop. It's shallow, maybe a hand deep, but the water inside is perfectly still. Too still. No ripples, no reflection. Just dark and waiting. You kneel. Because of course you do. The moment your breath hits the surface, the pool reacts. The water swirls outward in rings, then in shapes. Symbols, animals, even faces. One of them looks suspiciously like the masked jackal from earlier. Another resembles your own face, only older, tired, wiser, or maybe just more haunted. Then the images fade, replaced by a single vision. A staircase, coiled tighter than any you've climbed, leads into a chamber of mirrors. In the center stands a being, wrapped in starlight, neither male nor female, neither human nor beast. Its eyes are closed. It's waiting. A soft voice, just behind your right ear. The seer waits only for the one who dares to look back. You spin around. No one. Classic. Scholars have long debated the true function of the Ziggurat summit. Was it a place of communion or command? A throne for the gods or a trap for them? One rogue theory suggests the top of each ziggurat acted as a lens, not for seeing stars, but for magnifying certain mental states. Dreams, visions, madness. You stand. The water stills again. You're not sure if you passed a test or just participated in something you'll regret later. Probably both. A soft chiming draws your gaze to the far corner. A bell, not hanging, but embedded in the wall, flush with the stone. It rings without moving, its tone impossibly delicate for its size. You approach and, without knowing why, place your palm on it. You hear, "Permission granted." The wind shifts. A section of the floor slides away, revealing yet another staircase. This one spirals downward, but it feels like forward progress. And you've long given up arguing with architecture. You descend. This stairwell is different. Polished. Lit by soft lamps that glow without flame. The walls are painted with scenes of animals walking backward, of birds with eyes in their wings, of people feeding their dreams to trees. You are no longer in the realm of priests. You've entered the temple of echoes. It smells like ink and burnt cedar. A central altar sits surrounded by scrolls and wax tablets, all blank, all humming with potential. Shelves climb the walls, stuffed with writings in cuneiform, pictographs, even languages you don't recognize. There's a pressure in the air, like you're inside a thought being written. One scroll floats midair, unwinding itself toward you. On it, your journey so far. Every room, every choice, every barley trade. It's being recorded in real time. You glance to the bottom. A line begins to appear. And then they looked up, because something was finally looking back. You do. At the top of the staircase, a figure, unmasked, radiant, familiar, and not. The seer. They descend one step, say nothing, but their eyes ask you a question without words. Do you want to know the rest of the story? You're not sure if they mean your story, or the temples, or the ziggurats, but you nod anyway. Because this has never really been about choice. It's about witness. The seer turns, gestures toward the last staircase, straight up, impossibly steep, cut from black stone that reflects none of the light around it. The final ascent, and you follow. Because of course you do. The steps are obsidian, literal obsidian, not painted to look dark, not metaphorically deep. Real volcanic glass carved into sharp, perfect angles that shimmer without reflecting. You test one with your bare foot, and it's not cold like you expected. It's warm, almost aware. You begin to climb. The barley bowl is light in your hands now. A few grains remain, no longer humming, but vibrating softly, like they're bracing themselves for what's above, or below, or both. Directions don't feel fixed anymore. Behind you, the seer doesn't follow. They simply watch, hands folded in a way that could be prayer or judgment or neither. You glance back once, hoping for a wink, a thumbs up, anything vaguely encouraging. They blink, slowly, then vanish like a memory misfiled. Well, you reach the top of the obsidian staircase, and the air hits you like a wall. It's thinner, cleaner, scented with something like crushed lilies and wet ash. There's a pulsing in your ears now, not from exertion, but from the atmosphere itself. Like the ziggurat is exhaling, and you've just stepped into its final breath. You emerge into a circular chamber, open-roofed, moonlight pouring in like silver rain. The floor is engraved with concentric circles that pulse faintly, responding to your steps, not reacting to your presence exactly, but to your intention. You are in the chamber of names. In the center stands a pedestal, flat, wide, with nothing on it. Yet, surrounding it are walls carved with thousands, millions of symbols. Names, supposedly, each one different. Some in cuneiform, some in geometric spirals, some in languages you can't identify. A few are just handprints. Others are shapes that make your brain throb to look at. Here, the Ziggurat records every visitor who ever made it this far, which, based on the lack of footprints, is not a lot. You approach the pedestal. It pulses. The bowl in your arms lifts, floats actually, rising above the platform and tipping slowly. The last grains of barley spill onto the stone surface and scatter like dice thrown by a very patient god. One by one, the grains disappear into the pedestal. A new symbol etches itself into the stone. It's your name, or at least the ziggurat's best attempt at it. It doesn't sound like your name, but it feels right, like a nickname you forgot you once had. Something given to you under a different sky. A voice, not the seer's this time, but deeper, older. The kind of voice that can only come from bricks fired by fire older than memory. Speaks inside your chest. Now you remember. Historians still argue over what the highest point of a ziggurat was for. Was it the literal dwelling of a god? A sacred archive? An initiation chamber for high priests and royalty? Some fringe theorists, yes, the same ones, who believe in interdimensional scribes, claim the top wasn't for people at all. It was for the ziggurat. As if the structure itself was learning, dreaming, evolving. And now it has your name. You stand very still. The air changes again, thickens, and suddenly the walls come to life. Each name begins to shimmer, and then whisper, not words, just tones. Like each name is a note in a vast chord. Together they sing, low and harmonious. You can feel it in your knees, your stomach, your teeth. The chamber becomes a song, and you are part of it. Then one name, one tone, rises above the rest. You turn toward it instinctively. A niche in the wall opens. Inside, a mask. It's not like the ones you saw earlier. This one is elegant, smooth, with silver detailing and a moonstone embedded in the forehead. It looks soft, despite being clearly metal, like something that would form to your face if it liked you enough. A scroll floats beside it. You unroll it. Blank. Then, slowly, it fills with script. Not inked, just emerging, like words rising from the paper's own memory. It reads, "One who climbs is not just a guest, they are witness, and sometimes witness becomes keeper." You look at the mask again. Yeah, you know what's coming. You lift it gently and place it against your face. It doesn't just fit, it melds. Cool metal warms instantly. You see stars, not the sky, but constellations that don't exist anymore. You hear laughter from centuries ago. You feel dust storms, harvest festivals, quiet births in reed huts. All of it rushes through you in a moment of impossible, beautiful clarity. And then it's gone. The mask doesn't come off. You don't want it to, because now you remember. Not everything, just enough. The barley was never just grain. The stairs were never just stone. The guardians weren't guarding you. They were guarding what you were becoming. And what is that? A dream, a record, a warning. You are now part of the ziggurat, and the ziggurat is not done. A panel slides open in the floor. Not a trapdoor, just a passage, glowing faintly. You descend, but this time, you don't feel like you're going downward. You're going inward, into the memory of the ziggurat itself, and it's ready to show you everything. It begins with darkness, not the scary kind, but the total kind. So complete it feels like velvet. You're still moving, though you can't feel your feet. The passage carries you, like a slow river winding through the dreamscape of a stone god. This must be the ziggurat's memory vault. You're not walking now. You're floating, drifting. The walls shift from obsidian to a soft, iridescent blue. Murals begin to shimmer across the surface, projected by no visible light source. They flicker, living scenes, not just paintings. You watch them unfold like theater, moments from thousands of years ago. There, priests grinding incense in golden bowls, chanting to a sky that isn't today's sky. Over there, merchants bartering barley and lapis lazuli in a sun-baked courtyard. You float past a young scribe carving cuneiform into a wet clay tablet, his brow furrowed like he knows someone will be watching, like he knows it might be you. One of the first mainstream facts about Mesopotamia hits you here like a polite academic gently tapping your shoulder. Writing began here. Cuneiform, developed in Sumer, wasn't just an invention. It was a revolution. Farmers used it to track debts, priests to write hymns, and kings to write laws that would make your local HOA look gentle. But the walls show more than clay and reeds. They show dreams. A man prays before a statue that opens its eyes. A woman weaves a tapestry, and her threads glow with constellations. A child is born under a blood-red moon, and animals gather silently to watch. Then more disturbing visions. A ceremony involving jars of teeth. A room where shadows outnumber the people. A giant bowl, not unlike your barley bowl, overflowing with black ichor, while masked figures chant in reverse. You float past it all, somewhere between fascinated and mildly concerned. You whisper, "Am I seeing history or hallucination?" The ziggurat doesn't answer. But then comes the strangest image yet. A ziggurat, not this one, sinking into sand. Entire generations screaming from its staircases as the structure melts like wax. In its place rises something taller, darker, humming with a rhythm that doesn't quite belong to Earth. A fringe theory bubbles up in your mind, uninvited but persistent. Some believe ziggurats weren't merely temples, but repositories for dreams, places that stored collective memory. When one collapsed or was destroyed, its dreams had to go somewhere. Some say that's what caused the strange floods, the plagues, the endless wars. Lost dreams, leaking. You feel the hallway slowing you down. The drift becomes a gentle halt. Before you is a door, a round one rimmed with tiny glyphs, each glowing as your eyes pass over them. You don't knock, you don't push. You simply will the door open, and it obeys. The room beyond is shaped like a human eye, elliptical, perfectly symmetrical. The walls ripple like water, but they're solid to the touch, some kind of resin or polished stone. And in the center, a throne. No one sits on it. Yet. On a pedestal beside it rests a new object, a stylus. Not the ancient reed type, but something sleeker, more refined. Its handle is wrapped in black twine, and the tip gleams like it was just dipped in fresh ink. You pick it up. Immediately, a stone tablet rises before you, floating midair, blank and buzzing. You don't know the language, but your hand starts moving, and the stylus writes for you. Symbols form. Not words, exactly. Not images either. They're somewhere in between, a kind of meta-language. You realize you're recording not just what you've seen, but what you felt. The barley's rhythm, the seer's gaze, the moment the mask accepted you. And then something strange happens. You start writing what's next. You describe a chamber with 6 arches, a flooded corridor, a ritual involving sound and breath, a choice between 2 paths, one silent, one singing. You pause. You haven't seen those yet, but you will, because the ziggurat isn't just memory. It's prophecy. This isn't a vault of history. It's a loop, and you're now a part of it. As the last symbol etches itself into the floating tablet, it dissolves into ash, into smoke, into you. You feel the knowledge settle in your bones like dust finding a home. A chime sounds, that soft, perfect bell tone again. Another passage opens. This one is narrower, warmer. It smells like cinnamon and baked clay. The kind of scent that could lull someone into a nap they never wake up from. You step in, and the walls close behind you. A heartbeat later, you're standing in a circular chamber, identical to the one you left, but subtly different. There are 6 arches around the room, and yeah, you recognize it. You just wrote this part. Each arch is marked with a symbol, a flame, a wave, an eye, a spiral, a tree, and a mask. Only one of them glows. The spiral. You walk toward it, and just before you cross the threshold, you hear a whisper. Not external, not internal, but from the stylus you're still holding. It says, you don't just remember. You choose what's remembered. You smile, because apparently you're the historian now. And your job just got very, very weird. You step through the spiral arch, and the world bends. Not dramatically, not like falling through a portal, with sparks and music, but more like walking into a memory you forgot was yours. The air is cooler here, not cold, just calculated. It smells of old ink, wet stone, and something faintly metallic, like a bronze coin left in the rain. The passage ahead coils like a nautilus shell, its walls etched with undulating lines that ripple when you pass. The stylus in your hand pulses gently, as if pleased to be here. Or maybe warning you, you're walking into the spiral archive. At least that's what your bones decide to call it. No one says it aloud. No one needs to. It's the kind of name that comes pre-installed in your memory once you cross the threshold. This part of the ziggurat is different. It's not just a place of memory. It's a place where memories rewrite themselves. The walls here don't just show the past, they negotiate with it. As you move deeper, shifting shadows flicker along the walls. Not ominous ones. More like flickers of possibilities. A child learning to fish. A priest dropping a scroll into a canal. A ziggurat built not from bricks, but from sound. You blink, and one memory vanishes. Another takes its place. Some scholars believe ziggurats were tuned to frequencies, literally. That their stairs, walls, and even bricks were placed with acoustic perfection, allowing sound to bounce and vibrate in exact patterns. The idea? That chanting or drumming in just the right way could awaken the structure itself. and that maybe, just maybe, memory wasn't stored in stone, but in sound, which explains why the stylus hums whenever you pass certain points. It's not reacting to the architecture, it's communing with it. The corridor widens into a chamber shaped like an ear. That's right, an ear. On the far side, a podium, curved like a cochlea. On it rests a shallow bowl made of some pearlescent material. Half shell, half stone, all mystery. You peer into it. There's liquid inside. Thick, silver, slightly viscous. But it doesn't ripple with your breath or movement. Instead, it pulses to your heartbeat. The stylus floats from your grip and dips into the liquid like a patient paintbrush. When it lifts again, a single drop remains on its tip, glowing. And then the room speaks, not in language, in memory. You see the ziggurat's construction, not from above, but from within. You are a worker now, your muscles aching as you haul clay bricks up a sloped ramp, cursing softly under your breath while trying not to drop anything. The priest, overseeing you, spits into the dust for luck. There's a festival happening below. Drums, flutes, some guy yelling about goat cheese. You glance toward the distant sound, wishing you could join. Then, a flash. Now you're a different worker, another time. Same ramp, except this time, you're laying in the bricks, not stacking them. You're part of the wall, alive, but not moving, trapped, preserved. That debate still hasn't been settled. Some historians argue that certain workers may have been buried intentionally inside the ziggurat as living offerings. Others call this fringe nonsense. But in a place like this, where memory bleeds into metaphor, it's hard to tell the difference. You blink out of the vision. The stylus lowers into the bowl again. Another drop, another memory. Now you're a bird, flying around the top of the ziggurat at dawn. You swoop between temple columns. You watch priests place meat on altars and chant toward a distant planet. You poop on someone's head. Well, some truths are universal. Then the scene shifts again. You're underground, in a chamber you haven't reached yet. There's a glow, amber and low, and a hum, like breath caught in a bottle. You watch as someone places a scroll into a socket in the wall. Not a shelf, a socket, like it was meant to be plugged in, not stored. And it glows, because in this place, memory is electric. You're not just remembering the past, you're charging it. You stumble back from the bowl, blinking. The stylus returns to your hand, its tip now flickering between light and shadow, like it hasn't decided who it is anymore. And that's when you realize the spiral you entered. It's growing. Not just twisting ahead, but behind you too. The corridor you entered through, gone, replaced by another wall of etched, rippling stone. The ziggurat is changing itself around you. Or maybe it's responding to you. You think of that fringe theory again, that ziggurats were less like buildings and more like organisms, living archives that required interaction, memory, sacrifice. And if that's true, you're not a visitor anymore. You're a neuron, a spark in the brain of something older than civilization. The room quiets. The spiral path begins to retract, not collapse, but coil, drawing you inward once more. You follow, because what else can you do? As you move, the walls begin to sing, not with voices, but with tone, like someone rubbing a wet finger around the edge of a crystal bowl. It grows louder the deeper you go, until it's not sound anymore, but sensation. A hum in your ribs, a tremor in your lungs. Then, silence. You emerge into a new space. It's a well, not a pit. A well, wide, perfectly circular, with ledges spiraling downward. At the bottom, a pool of glowing ink, not liquid, not light, both. Around the edges are scrolls, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Each one is sealed with wax and marked with the same symbol, the spiral. You understand now. This is where the ziggurat stores potential. Not events that happened, but events that might. Unwritten histories. Stories waiting for a stylus. And you, mask wearer, barley bringer, stylus holder, you're here to choose one. Because the ziggurat doesn't just remember the past, it predicts the future. And you're about to write it. You crouch at the edge of the well, the ink pulsing below like a heartbeat made visible. The scrolls hum ever so slightly, as if whispering, each one pitching its own version of a possible future. The stylus in your hand heats gently, reminding you that decisions here are not just symbolic. They stick, they ripple. You reach out toward a scroll, not to grab it, just to feel it. The wax seal tingles at your fingertips like static on the edge of a thunderstorm. Instinct tells you, don't break the seal unless you're ready to live with what you read. But you're not alone. There's a movement behind you, soft, deliberate. You turn and see a figure cloaked in iridescent linen, their mask smooth and unadorned, like a blank clay tablet. No eyes, no mouth, just presence. They don't speak. They hold a scroll and offer it to you. You hesitate, then you take it. The scroll is heavier than it should be. Its wax seal is different, marked not with the spiral, but a crude circle containing two intersecting lines, almost like a modern plus sign. It feels out of place here. It feels newer. You crack the seal. The wax releases with a hiss, like a snake exhaling after a long nap. The scroll unrolls itself, and the ink writes. Not ancient symbols this time, not spirals or star charts, just clear, blocky strokes that look suspiciously like your own handwriting. It tells the story of a ziggurat rediscovered in the 21st century. One hidden beneath desert sands until a freak lightning storm split the dunes and revealed stone steps beneath. Archaeologists dig it up. They find you, still holding the stylus, still wearing the mask. You are both subject and artifact. The scroll ends with a museum placard that reads, The Sleeper of Ur, unknown ritual participant, circa 2100 BCE. You look up. The masked figure is gone. Only the spiral remains, etched now into the base of the well, glowing brighter than before. That's when you feel the ziggurat shifting again. Not around you, beneath you. A tremble, a breath, a rise. You're not imagining it. The well is lifting, not you descending, but the archive itself ascending, like a tower remembering its original height. You ascend with it, scroll still in hand, the stylus glowing at your side, and then you're no longer in a well. You're in the throat of the ziggurat. That's what it feels like. A hollow vertical shaft leading straight to the stars, lined with murals, constellations, and metal plates that vibrate with harmonic tones. This, historians still argue about. Was the ziggurat a temple or an astronomical observatory? Maybe both. Maybe neither. Or maybe a tuning fork for the soul. Because as you rise, you see it. The sky ceiling above. Painted, sure, but also open in parts, letting in the real night sky beyond. You see constellations you don't recognize, patterns lost to time, or perhaps yet to be discovered. One looks like a reed stylus, another like a barley stalk. And there, faint but unmistakable, a spiral. Your stylus starts vibrating. It wants you to write. But this time, there's no tablet, no scroll, only the air itself. So you raise the stylus and begin to draw on nothing, on space, on time, on the breath between stars. The symbols glow as they're formed, drifting outward like smoke rings. They curl and twist and stack, creating a ladder of thought, a staircase of memory. The ziggurat responds. You hear drums, far below, so distant they might be echoes of a past that never happened, or a future already beginning. A rhythmic beat, soft and steady, like the pounding of earth during a festival. You remember something odd you once read. Well, that you're remembering now. Some ancient tablets describe ziggurats not as man-made, but as planted, like seeds. Structures that grow slowly, not from brick, but from ritual. Each chant a raindrop, each sacrifice a ray of sun. You've been feeding it all along. That first bowl of barley, that was water. The mask, sunlight. The scroll, compost. Because now the ziggurat blooms. Petal-like platforms unfold around you. You see glimpses of other paths, archways leading to other timelines, other possible histories. In one, the Sumerians conquer the stars. In another, they forget how to write but learn to speak to plants. In one, you never left the barley field. You want to explore them all, but you can't. You have to choose. You stare into one platform where you see yourself teaching in a room lit by holographic clay tablets. Another shows you planting reeds beside a river that has yet to exist. The stylus pulses. 1 beat, 2, 3. Then the petals collapse. The ziggurat retracts like a closing flower, bringing you inward again, back to a central chamber lit by torchlight. Simple again. Stone again. One scroll on a plinth. It's yours, sealed with the spiral. The ziggurat has recorded your passage. You are part of its archive now. You place the stylus beside the scroll. It vanishes. The plinth lowers into the floor. And suddenly, it's quiet, still, as if nothing had ever happened. But you know better, because now you hear whispers from every wall. Not scary ones, just interested, welcoming. One says, he carries the barley. Another, she bore the mask. And another, they remembered what no one else could. You sit down. You breathe. You have become both reader and written, archivist and archive, and the ziggurat rests again, full. The torchlight flickers softly around you, casting long, trembling shadows across the carved stone. You sit there, breathing in the scent of burnt cedar and dust, feeling the solid weight of history pressing gently against your skin. The ziggurat is quiet now, but not lifeless. You can almost hear it breathing, like a slumbering giant curled in ancient stone. You look around. This chamber is different from the others. No spirals, no glowing symbols, just plain brick walls and a simple worn bench carved from alabaster. It feels like the heart of the structure, a place meant for rest or reflection, or maybe both. You remember the rhythmic pounding, the festival drums echoing faintly through the corridors. They seem to come from the distant past and the distant future all at once. That steady beat, like the pulse of the land itself, reminds you of something essential. Barley, the lifeblood of Mesopotamia. It wasn't just food or currency. It was the very rhythm of life here. Planting, harvesting, grinding, brewing. Barley linked the people to the earth, to the gods, and to each other. The ancient Sumerians even had a goddess dedicated to it, Ninkasi, the divine brewer. A mainstream fact floats into your mind. Beer, made from barley, was not only the Sumerians' favorite drink, but a staple of their diet. They called it the drink of the gods, and even workers received daily beer rations to keep their strength up. You smile softly, imagining the tired workers at the base of the ziggurat, drinking from clay cups after a day hauling bricks, probably swapping stories or complaining about the heat, or about how the priests kept stealing their best barley for offerings. But barley wasn't just practical, it was sacred too. You recall a quirky ritual. During the Akitu festival, barley stalks were woven into intricate crowns and carried in processions, symbolizing renewal and life's continuity. The king himself would ceremonially plant barley in a sacred field, asking the gods for a good harvest. The ziggurat, you realize, was not just a temple or observatory. It was a living calendar, a place where the cycles of nature and time were woven into stone. Historians still debate whether these towering structures served primarily as religious centers or were early astronomical observatories, tracking the stars and seasons. Your fingers brush against the smooth surface of the bench, and the stone seems to hum faintly. It's almost like the ziggurat remembers every touch, every whispered prayer. You close your eyes and imagine the ancient world. Date palms swaying gently by the riverbanks, farmers tending their fields as the sun sets behind the ziggurat's silhouette, its many tears glowing softly in the moonlight. The smell of freshly baked bread mingles with incense from the temple altars. You can almost hear children laughing as they chase each other between stalls in a bustling market. Suddenly, a thought strikes you. The mask you wore earlier. Masks were more than just ceremonial garb. They were believed to bridge the mortal world and the divine. Some priests wore them during rituals to channel gods or spirits. Others believed masks could transform the wearer's identity, allowing them to step beyond ordinary life. And then there's the weird part. Some texts mention masked demons, not evil spirits, but protective ones who guarded the ziggurat's secrets. Wearing a mask was a way to invite these guardians, to keep both physical and spiritual threats at bay. You chuckle softly, thinking about how you'd feel wearing a mask in a busy market today. Probably a lot less mysterious and a lot more awkward. The chamber feels warmer now, as if the stories you've absorbed have brought life back into the stones. The walls seem to pulse gently, mirroring the rhythmic beat of barley being threshed, of festivals being celebrated, of the ziggurat itself breathing slowly through millennia. You realize you're no longer just an observer. You're a participant in this ancient dance, woven into the cycles of planting, harvesting, dreaming, and remembering. The ziggurat's mysteries are not locked away forever. They are alive, shifting, and waiting for the next story to be told, the next memory to be etched into stone and spirit. You take a deep breath, the dust of ages filling your lungs, and feel the steady heartbeat of ancient life beneath your feet. It's time to move again. You rise from the alabaster bench, feeling the cool stone beneath your palms as you stand. The quiet chamber behind you fades as you step forward, deeper into the labyrinthine heart of the ziggurat. Your footsteps echo softly on worn stone, each one a gentle drumbeat, marking your passage through time itself. Ahead, a narrow corridor stretches into darkness, faintly illuminated by flickering oil lamps, wedged into niches carved centuries ago. The air here carries a faint scent of resin and ash, the lingering aroma of countless ceremonies. You sense you're nearing a place where secrets are kept, whispered only in shadows. As you move cautiously, the walls shift imperceptibly, revealing intricate carvings of strange creatures and celestial bodies. You recognize some symbols: the crescent moon, the eight-pointed star of Ishtar. But others are unfamiliar, swirling patterns that seem almost alive under the flickering light. You recall a curious fact. The ziggurats' builders sometimes inscribed protective incantations within the bricks themselves, tiny cuneiform prayers to shield the sacred site from harm. These hidden spells were meant to keep out evil spirits and, intriguingly, unauthorized scribes. It's as if the walls themselves were literate, speaking a language only the initiated could decode. You run your fingers over one such inscription. The ancient wedge-shaped marks feel sharp and deliberate, like the stylus that once carved them. You try to decipher the text, but it shifts under your gaze, as if resisting translation. Historians still argue whether these inscriptions were purely magical or practical. Did they really ward off harm, or were they a kind of bureaucratic keep out sign? At the corridor's end, a heavy wooden door stands slightly ajar. Beyond it lies a dimly lit chamber filled with rows of clay tablets stacked meticulously on shelves that climb toward a vaulted ceiling. This must be the archive room, the brain of the ziggurat's memory. You step inside, and the scent of baked clay and ancient ink envelops you. Tablets bear detailed records, economic transactions, temple rituals, even poetic hymns to the gods. One tablet catches your eye, a fragment of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Its cuneiform script faded, but still potent. It's fascinating how these tablets bridge the gap between the mundane and the divine. A receipt for grain can sit next to a prayer for immortality, life and legend entwined, just like the ziggurat's very stones. Among the tablets, you spot something unusual. A tiny clay figure wearing a horned helmet with exaggerated eyes and a mischievous grin. It's a representation of Pazuzu, the infamous Mesopotamian demon known to protect against plagues and evil winds. A quirky tidbit surfaces. Despite his fearsome reputation, Pazuzu was a beloved household protector. Families kept amulets bearing his image to guard against harm, a paradox that reflects the complexity of Mesopotamian spirituality. You pocket the figure briefly, feeling its weight, a reminder that ancient beliefs were never black and white. They thrived in shades of gray, where demons could be guardians and masks could hide gods. The chamber seems to breathe with knowledge, its walls reverberating faintly with the voices of scribes long gone. You imagine them hunched over their tablets, styluses scratching late into the night, chronicling everything from barley harvests to celestial omens. This mix of the practical and the mystical is the true essence of the ziggurat, an intersection where human ambition meets divine mystery. You set Pazuzu back carefully and step toward a spiral staircase leading upward. The path is narrow and steep, winding toward the summit where the sky is said to meet the earth. As you ascend, the air grows thinner, cooler, and the carved stars on the walls become more prominent. The hum of distant drums fades, replaced by the whisper of the night wind. You reach the top, where the ziggurat's final platform opens to the sky. The moon hangs low, casting silver light over the desert expanse, illuminating the ancient city sprawled beneath. You stand alone, a solitary figure at the edge of history, feeling the weight of countless generations who climbed these steps before you. Historians still debate the ziggurat's ultimate purpose. Was it a bridge to the gods, a calendar marking time and season, or a fortress of knowledge and power? Perhaps it was all these things, or something beyond human comprehension. You gaze upward, letting the cool night air wash over you. Somewhere, far below, the festival drums begin again, steady, inviting. You smile, knowing this moonlit mystery is yours to carry forward. You take a slow breath, the desert night wrapping around you like a cool blanket as you stand on the summit of the Ziggurat. The moonlight spills silver across the rugged cityscape below. Mud brick houses, twisting alleys, and the endless weave of canals reflecting stars like liquid mirrors. The scent of date palms mingles with the distant smoke of cooking fires. You feel suspended between earth and sky, past and present. The Ziggurat summit is quieter now, but it pulses with invisible energy. You recall something historians still debate: whether the uppermost platform was a sacred space for priestly rituals or simply an observatory for tracking celestial events. Maybe it was both, or neither, a hybrid of science and spirituality, much like the Sumerians themselves. You lean against the low stone balustrade, feeling the rough texture under your fingertips and the weight of countless dawns and dusks pressed into its surface. Somewhere in this stone is a story about the moon, Nana, the god of the moon, who governed time and tides and who was central to Sumerian religion. The moon's phases dictated the calendar. Festivals, planting seasons, and even royal ceremonies all hinged on its glow. Without it, the ancient world would have been a chaotic swirl of guesswork and miscalculation. Your eyes drift to the horizon, where the moon's light softens the jagged silhouettes of distant mountains. You think of the farmers in the valley below, waking early to check their barley and reeds, guided by that same moonlight. And then you remember a quirky detail. The Sumerians didn't just look up at the moon. They tracked it with surprisingly sophisticated astronomy, recording eclipses and phases in detailed cuneiform tablets. Some of these records are among the earliest known scientific observations in human history. It's fascinating, isn't it? How their sacred myths and scientific curiosity were intertwined, like threads in a tapestry. One didn't exist without the other. Their gods were astronomers, and their astronomers were priests. You think about the mask again. This time, the one worn by the figure who handed you the scroll in the depths below. Masks, some believe, allowed the wearer to embody divine power or to see through the veil separating mortal and celestial worlds. Maybe the summit was where those masked rituals took place, where priest kings or seers, cloaked in mystery, communed with the heavens. You imagine a procession, torchlight flickering against the stone, voices chanting hymns to Nana, the air thick with incense and anticipation. The ziggurat steps filled with masked figures moving in rhythm, carrying offerings, bowls of barley beer, bundles of fresh reeds, perhaps even carved wooden figurines. You chuckle softly, picturing a priest awkwardly tripping on his linen robes or spilling beer down the steps. Even the holiest rituals probably had their clumsy moments. Looking back down, you spot the city's flickering lights, the beginnings of evening bustle. Market stalls closing, families gathering, children running with their shadows stretched long. The ancient world was full of ordinary moments too, mundane, messy, human. The ziggurat's grand mysteries were woven through these everyday lives. You feel the night wind brush past you, carrying distant laughter and the faint echo of drums once more. The ziggurat, perched between earth and sky, remains a sentinel of time, a monument not just to the gods, but to the people who lived, loved, and dreamed beneath its towering presence. And you, standing there under the moon, are part of that endless story, connected by barley, mask, and moonlight, woven into the eternal fabric of ancient life. You descend from the summit, your footsteps tracing the worn path that countless feet have followed over millennia. The stones beneath your sandals are smooth and familiar, as if the ziggurat itself recognizes your passage and welcomes you home. The moonlight guides your way, lending a gentle silver sheen to the carved reliefs that adorn the walls, depictions of gods, kings, and mythical beasts frozen in eternal motion. As you reach the lower terraces, the air thickens with the scent of date palms and wet earth, a reminder of the canals that pulse life through the city. You pause for a moment and let the quiet surround you, listening to the distant splash of water and the soft rustle of reeds. Here, near the base, life feels grounded and real, far from the lofty celestial ambitions of the summit. You imagine farmers and laborers gathering after a long day's work, their hands calloused from tilling the soil and tending barley fields. The ziggurat's grand silhouette towers over them, both protector and constant presence. You recall a mainstream fact. The ziggurat was not just a religious monument, but also a political one, a symbol of the city's power and the ruler's divine right to lead. The king was often seen as the intermediary between gods and people, responsible for maintaining cosmic order and earthly prosperity. But the relationship was complex. The gods demanded offerings, rituals, and obedience, but they also required the king to care for his people, to ensure the fields flourished, the canals flowed, and the city thrived. You walk past a small courtyard where you notice a cluster of children playing with clay figurines, tiny models of animals and gods. It strikes you how play, too, was a form of learning and connection, passing myths and values from one generation to the next. Among the figurines, you spot one unusual piece, a little mask, much like the ones worn by priests during ceremonies. You pick it up, feeling its rough edges and smiling at the thought that even children were learning to hold on to their heritage through play. Then your mind drifts to a quirky tidbit. Some scholars argue that early Mesopotamian education involved not just scribal training, but also performance art, including ritual drama, where masks played a central role. It was a way to bring stories alive, to teach history and morality through embodiment and spectacle. You imagine an ancient classroom filled with apprentices clumsily tracing cuneiform signs on wet clay tablets while a masked elder enacts a myth, capturing their wide-eyed attention. The debate about the ziggurat's role continues. Was it primarily a spiritual center, an astronomical tool, or a community hub blending all these functions? Perhaps it was a place where the cosmic and the everyday met. The divine observing the mundane aspiring to touch the divine. As you stroll through the courtyard, the moon dips lower, casting longer shadows and cooling the air. You pause again, feeling the pulse of the city around you, a living organism made of stone, water, and people. The ziggurat is more than architecture. It is memory, ritual, and life itself, a layered narrative carved into earth and spirit. And as you walk away, you carry a piece of that story with you, tucked beneath your skin like a secret chant waiting to be spoken. The night deepens as you leave the courtyard and wander toward the riverbanks where the Euphrates flows steady and sure. The water glimmers under the moonlight like a ribbon of silver threading through the land. The sound of flowing water is soothing, a gentle counterpoint to the hard edges of stone and brick you've just left behind. You stop and dip your fingers into the cool current, feeling the timeless pulse of life running through the river. This river was the lifeblood of Mesopotamia after all, the very reason the cities thrived where they did. You picture the farmers working these fields, irrigating their barley and date palms, their hands slick with mud. You imagine the annual flooding that both nourished and threatened their existence, an endless dance of creation and destruction. There's a mainstream fact here. Irrigation canals built by the Sumerians were among the earliest large-scale water management systems in history, vital for turning arid land into fertile farms. These canals required constant upkeep and community effort, making water management both a practical and social cornerstone. As you gaze upstream, you catch sight of a small boat drifting silently, perhaps a fisherman heading home or a priest ferrying offerings to a distant temple. You recall how boats were crucial, not just for commerce, but for religious ceremonies, carrying statues of gods during festivals. Nearby, children splash playfully at the water's edge, their laughter bright in the stillness. The simplicity of this scene contrasts sharply with the grandiosity of the ziggurat, but is no less vital. Your mind drifts to a quirky tidbit. Mesopotamian mythology often featured the river as a boundary between worlds, the living and the dead, the earthly and the divine. Some texts describe spirits riding boats along the Euphrates to reach the afterlife, guided by mysterious ferrymen. You chuckle softly, imagining a Mesopotamian version of Charon, maybe less grim and more like a bickering old boatman who's tired of ferrying everyone across. Historians still debate whether these myths influenced daily life or if they were simply poetic reflections of human fears and hopes about death and transition. Either way, the river's role as a connector and divider remains powerful. You turn your gaze back to the ziggurat rising in the distance, its tiers stark against the starry sky. The structure seems to watch over the river like a vigilant guardian, bridging earth, water, and sky. You realize the ziggurat wasn't just a monument to gods or kings, but a symbol of life's fragile balance, the careful interplay of elements, people, and time. As the night deepens, you sit by the riverbank, letting the gentle lapping of water soothe your thoughts. The moon slides higher, and the world seems to slow, wrapping you in a cocoon of quiet mystery. You think about the barley, the masks, the ancient prayers carved in stone, and the lives lived in their shadow. Ordinary people reaching for the divine in their own small ways, and you breathe it all in. This moment suspended between then and now, feeling the ancient world settle softly around you like a well-worn cloak. The night is drawing to a close, but you find yourself reluctant to leave this ancient world behind. You wander back toward the city, the soft glow of dawn just beginning to color the horizon with a pale, tentative light. The first birds stir, their calls gentle against the hum of awakening life. You pause in a quiet alley where clay pots and woven baskets lean against sun-baked walls. The scent of fresh bread from nearby ovens drifts past you, mingling with the earthy aroma of crushed barley and sweet date syrup. The city is coming alive again, its heartbeat steady and reassuring. You think about the people, farmers, scribes, priests, and children who lived and worked beneath the shadow of the ziggurat. Their lives intertwined with the cycles of nature, the rise and fall of kings, and the ever-watchful gaze of the gods. You recall a mainstream fact. The ziggurat was part of a larger temple complex that functioned as the city's economic, religious, and administrative center. It was a place where grain was stored, festivals were held, and divine will was interpreted. But beneath all this grandeur was something profoundly human: hope, fear, love, and the quest for meaning. Whether through masks, barley rituals, or moonlit prayers, the people of ancient Mesopotamia sought to understand their place in a vast and often unpredictable world. A quirky tidbit surfaces. Some Mesopotamian texts describe dream interpreters who wore masks and claimed to receive messages from the gods during sleep, a practice that sounds surprisingly like an ancient form of psychotherapy. Historians still argue about many aspects of ziggurat life. How much power was truly held by the priests, whether the ziggurat was a temple, an observatory, or both, and what daily rituals looked like beyond the grand festivals. But perhaps the greatest mystery is that the ziggurat, though silent now, still speaks through its stones. It tells of a civilization that thrived on the edges of myth and reality, where the celestial and the earthly danced in eternal rhythm. As you walk away, the city behind you awakens fully, bathed in the soft light of morning. The ziggurat stands tall, a testament to human ingenuity, belief, and resilience. You carry its story with you, woven into your thoughts like the intricate patterns on a cuneiform tablet, ready to be told again under another moonlit sky. End of script. Sweet dreams.